Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. Well, it's been busy the last few days in the news. Has anyone noticed that? That it seems like it's just constantly and progressively more stuff coming out. More fear, and then more things that we really should take notice of because as we've talked about before, I think a lot of this stuff is connected. So I want to talk about the many things that are happening right now. Not all of them, but I think some that are pretty important. Point them out, so I ask that you go ahead and stick with me on this video. I'll try not to make it too long, but there is a lot to cover in this video. So let's get started. Well, before we get started, I do want to mention a company that I feel it's a very good company. If you're wanting in the market for freeze-dried, emergency-type foods, My Patriot Supplies, something that I've partnered with, you can go to preparewithtravis.com and you can find an excellent quality products. They make them in the buckets and the cans, whatever you want. Their buckets, they've recently added more variety of foods to their buckets, and I think that they offer some of the best, price per calorie product out there on the market. That's preparewithtravis.com. All right, are you ready for another summer of love with BLM? Because that's probably what's going to happen. In fact, there's a lot of cities already starting to get ready for the ending of the Derek Chauvin trial, the verdict they're expecting over the next few days. And we're seeing cities all across America telling the businesses to start boarding up your business. They're telling police officers all across America that, your time off, days off, vacations, all that kind of stuff is done. You're not getting any until this is all over. Because regardless of the verdict, they believe that it's going to get rough and wild, potentially more so than we even saw last year. And we've already been seeing it for the last couple of weeks. There's been a couple of shootings in the last few weeks that have sparked, new outrage and new riots. And is this all just disgruntled people that have been held up in their houses for too long because of this health crisis? Is this legitimate outrage, or is this coordinated efforts? Well, we do know that the head of BLM is a self-proclaimed and very open Marxist. She has many times in the media has openly stated her Marxist ideology, and that that the BLM is here not just for its namesake, but to push Marxist ideology on America. And so we're going to definitely see some more riots. So if you folks, any of you, or live anywhere near areas that would most likely see them, you should certainly start preparing. I've even been seeing people talking about bugging out over the next few weeks, and I'm not saying it's the wrong idea at all. If that's where you're at, if you're stuck in living in a place like that, it very well could be a solution. I know several people last year during all the riots, they bugged out during those times. And I'm not a big fan of bugging out because I live in my bug out location. But if I were to live in one of those areas, it would definitely be something I would strongly consider doing because of the nature of these riots and probably what they will be this time around. Speaking of all this kind of violence, there's been a lot of shootings lately too. I've tried to do the research and I haven't found the exact answer, but I've seen people say that there's just been an increase of them, and then some people I've read say, well, there's not been that big of an increase. It's just that the media is more hyper-focused on them and mentioning everyone in the news and making it such a big deal. Regardless of that, CNN's putting out graphics like this of all the shootings in the last month. And of course, all that does is push this gun control agenda even further. We're seeing even what would be considered, moderate conservatives or, rhinos, or, the American people that wouldn't align themselves necessarily with the hard left saying, you know what, yeah, we do need some common sense gun measures, While we support the Second Amendment, we know you have a right to go hunting and to have a double-barrel shotgun in your house to defend yourself. Even Joe Biden says that's all you need. It's a double-barrel shotgun in your house. But you don't need these evil weapons of war. That's what we're hearing. And of course, as they say this, there's a big uptick in all the violence and all the shooting that just backs up their efforts to basically take your rights away, to defend yourself and to fight against tyranny. Because as we all know, that's what the Second Amendment is. It's a protection against tyranny. It's not about hunting. It's not even about protecting your home from a criminal. It's about fighting against tyranny. And then, on top of all of that, we have, this Bitcoin stuff. Have you guys been following that? I'm not a big Bitcoin person, but I understand it. And I've been warning people for a while that, if you don't hold it in your hand, then you don't really own it. I'm not saying don't invest in it. I'm not saying don't have it. I'm just saying, always remember, if you don't have that tangible physical item in your hand, then you don't really own it. And we're already seeing, is this just a kind of a reset checking of the Bitcoin bubble, or we are already seeing the results of government crackdown on Bitcoin, because that's what they're doing. There's been talk of cracking down on Bitcoin because it's used in money laundering. There's already been sanctions put on Russia, and Bitcoin has dropped somewhere in the neighborhood of 10% of its value. Cryptocurrencies, I saw this article that they've lost somewhere around $300 billion in value just in the last couple of days or so. I believe in my heart that in the end, government, and we are seeing other governments, look at India and a few others that are putting restrictions and banning cryptocurrencies. I don't believe, personally, I know a lot of you will argue with me, and that's fine. We can have difference of opinions, but I don't think cryptocurrencies is what's going to save us. There's too many ways that they can restrict it, and in being that you don't have it in your hand, there's no asset in your hand, then you really, really don't own it. And so we're already seeing, cryptocurrencies starting to fall. And then look at the stuff with volcanoes and earthquakes. Have you guys been paying attention to all this stuff? It's funny how no one really, really wants to talk about this. There's been already, this year alone, there's already been a 50% more volcanic eruptions so far this year than any other normal average year on this planet. In fact, there's been just a major uptick of volcanoes and earthquakes already this year. There's several articles out about this. There's been, just in the last 24 hours, as of me recording this video, in the last 24 hours, there's been over 250 earthquakes just at volcanoes alone on this planet. Not all the other earthquakes, just the earthquakes that are happening on volcanoes, at volcanoes. There's been over 250 just in the last 24 hours. These volcanoes are already putting up a lot of ash up in the air. And there's satellite imagery from all over the world where these different volcanoes are just bellowing, tons and tons and tons of ash up in the air, which does affect our climate, okay? We've got the grand solar minimum going on. We've got all these earthquakes and then all the volcanoes going on. It's affecting it. There's a lot of strange weather going on. There's ice in places that there shouldn't be. There's cold weather in Europe where there shouldn't be. There's heat in Russia where there shouldn't be. It's all over. Here in the United States even, there's been some really strange things going on with weather over the last few months. They're predicting this year to be the biggest drought in the United States in 1,200 years. 1,200 years. It'll be the driest year, they're predicting. And already, just around here in my area, here we are getting towards the end of April. And while we've had some rain, I mean, there's water in this creek behind me, we have not had anywhere near the amount of rain that we would normally get by this time of the year. So It's got a lot of farmers around here, I've spoken with them, worried that because we haven't gotten the amount of rain we normally do in the spring, does that mean we're going to be really hurting come summer? Because summers are usually pretty dry for us around here. We get most of our rain in the spring, and that holds us through the summer. But we've gotten a lot less rain than normal. There's only been one time, this creek here behind me, it's usually full multiple times a season in the spring. And there's only been one time so far that creek rose. And it really didn't rise that much. There's even been times that this creek has come up out of the creek, and where I'm standing right now would be underwater. That's kind of normal, at least once a year, and that hasn't happened. There's a lot of changes right now happening all over, and I think so many people are just kind of oblivious to it. And we're not even talking about everything. You know, we're not even talking about the ridiculousness with this health crisis, and how they're, while some states are, you know, backing down on different mandates, other states are wanting to make it permanent. They're flat out full-on police state. Just look at this video here from Ontario. And I know this is Canada. Most of you are here in the United States. You're like, ah, that's Canada. Well, that's just our neighbors, okay? And while they don't traditionally, you know, have the liberties that we do, they've always had pretty close to that. But listen to the language of these officials here in up in Ontario, of how they're flat. They're not even sugarcoating it. They're flat out telling people, yeah, you're losing all your rights. It's a police state. Listen to this.
Every public health measure we have left comes with a massive cost to people and their lives. But we have never shied away from doing what's necessary.
We have made the deliberate decision to temporarily enhance police officers' authority for the duration of the stay-at-home order. Moving forward, police will have the authority to require any individual who is not in a place of residence to, first, provide their purpose for not being at home and provide their home address. Police will also have the authority to stop a vehicle to inquire about an individual's reason for leaving their residence.
For our employers and employees, take note, this is your last warning.
If someone sees their neighbors breaking these new regulations and having a party in their yard, that sort of thing, should people call police on their neighbors?
In terms of people calling to snitch, to inform, look, we all have a personal responsibility. If it means saving lives, then I think we have to think about what your social responsibilities are as an individual to make sure that you don't empower other people and invite a whole bunch of individuals to your home.
Do you hear the words that they're using? How they're at the end, they were saying that, you know, we don't want to empower people. We don't want to empower them to have freedom. You know, it's your duty to society to rat on your neighbor. We don't want people to be empowered to think that they have freedom. It's getting bad everywhere, okay? The amount of riots, not the BLM stuff, the amount of full-on riots on this planet due to the increased police state in multiple countries it's just getting worse and worse and worse. The tension between countries when we're looking at Russia and Ukraine and China and Taiwan and Israel and Iraq, I mean, and then there's all this weird stuff with earthquakes going on. There was an earthquake in Iraq near the one of their nuclear sites, and then there was 2 major earthquakes in Taiwan. Are those just coincidences, or are those kind of being done by, you know, Israel and China and all that? And then the whole thing with Russia and Ukraine, which, man, it looks like it's just about ready to explode. Russia has over 100,000 troops and a lot of equipment sitting on the border, and Ukraine has a whole bunch of troops and equipment sitting on the border. And now the United Kingdom is sending ships into the Black Sea in support of Ukraine. I don't think that this one is going to just go away quickly. I think the probability of shots being fired and some kind of battle or war between these two nations, and then eventually others coming in, are pretty high right now. So when you start putting all this stuff together, you know, I said in the beginning, I believe there's connections, and you're probably thinking, okay, all this stuff's bad, it's all crazy, you know, it's definitely things to worry about, but how's it connected? Well, I believe it's connected in this way. It's connected in the sense that it's causing great disruption and unsettledness all over this planet. And I think that a lot of people are starting to become numb to it. They're becoming numb to the chaos that's constantly going on. I think in the back of their minds they know it's bad, but they have this fear of, like, if we admit that it's bad, if we know that it's bad, acknowledge that, we're not prepared to deal with it. We're not prepared to handle a world in such disarray. And so I think they're subconsciously shutting that down and just trying to believe that things are getting better, believe that it's all better, believe that nothing bad is going on. And when everybody knows that a lot of bad stuff is going on. I mean, you could always point out good stuff, there always is, but the amount of unsettledness and just flat out chaos that's going on when it comes to government, when it comes to social unrest and divisions between the people, and then you add to that all this stuff with, you know, volcanoes and earthquakes and grand solar minimums and crazy weather things happening all over the planet, that all those things disrupt supply chains, they disrupt agriculture, they displace people, they make, and some of them can have very long-term effects, especially the volcanic eruptions. The amount of ash that's being, you know, spewed up into the atmosphere right now, it very well and most likely will start having a cooling effect. There's already studies coming out saying that this is quite possibly going to be the coolest year on record for at least the last 30 or so years. And with more volcanic eruptions, and they're talking about already several more that are on the verge of erupting, then it could very well continue to cool our planet, which is what a lot of us have already talked about with this grand solar minimum. So, what does all this mean for you and I? Well, aside from just, you know, being aware and noting all of this stuff that's going on, and many more things, because I have certainly not covered everything. What it means is we've got to be prepared, folks. It means that we've got to start stocking up. It means we've got to be serious. It means that not just our food, which of course is very important, and water sources and the ability to purify water, clean water, store water. We also need to work on our skills and developing the ability to produce our own food. We have to do that. That is going to, at some point in the future, whether it's in our lifetime or our children's lifetime, it's going to be a must to be able to produce our own food. And then also the skills and the tools that you need to use with those skills to just be able to, at some point, whether through voluntary or being forced to, because there's no other option, the skills and the tools that you need to be as self-sufficient as possible. These are things that are an absolute must. And you have to, I know most of you are doing this. I know most of you are, because that's why you're watching this show. And you watch other videos like my channel. But we've really got to be getting serious about being as self-sufficient as possible, getting things that we need. I saw something the other day, you know, I've talked about lumber a few times on here, and this article was pointing out the drastic increase in lumber prices. But the point that it was making in the article was that everything looks like that those lumber prices are going to increase even further, that they're expecting them over the spring and the summer to go up even more. So as hard as it would be for you to buy lumber right now, if you need it, you probably ought to get it, because it looks like it's going to just keep going up. A lot of goods are just becoming more and more expensive. The dollar just keeps inflating. We are living in inflation. You know, a lot of people are, you know, excited that certain things are increasing in prices when, you know, they think, well, that just shows that people are making more money. No, it shows that our money is worth less. So it's taking more of those dollars to buy that item, whether it's a stock in the stock market, or it's gasoline at your pump, or it's a gallon of milk, or whatever it is. It's taking more of that money to purchase that item. The items aren't any more valuable than they've ever been. The stick of lumber is not any more valuable. The house isn't more valuable. That stock isn't any more valuable. That you know, ounce of gold isn't any more valuable than it's ever been. It's the money that you're using to purchase it, the currency, those debt bonds that you have in your wallet or in your bank account. Those are worth less and less and less. And it's making it harder and harder for people to get by. The only reason that the economy is even doing so good right now, or that people appear to be doing so good, is because they've been given free money constantly. A lot of people still are. All these unemployment benefits and stimulus packages and you know, the rent moratoriums and stuff like that. Eventually that stuff's going to stop. And eventually it's also going to affect the currency, the US dollar, more and more and more, to where it won't matter how much money is given to us. So folks, I don't know how to tell you this any more than I already do, but you've got to be getting stocked up and prepared. I don't feel that that's like a, you know, me trying to give you, you know, induce fear and, you know, oh, the sky is falling. No, it's just that the reality that we are living in an unstable and uncertain times. Most all of you already know that. But when we look at all these things happening, it gives us a greater, you know, perspective and better idea of what's coming and at the rate that it's coming at us, so that it, you know, encourages us to prepare more. That's basically what it is. So, you know, if you have to sit down with your spouse and have a discussion like, okay, we've been doing this for a while, you know, what can we do more? What can we, what are the things that we can, you know, cut back in this area to increase in preparing? You know, if you have friends and neighbors and community that are all preppers, maybe it's would be a good interest for you to go into purchasing large portions of things. You know, a pallet of rice, a pallet of beans, you know, large quantities, because you can get the price down. And if there's several of you, it can make it for a pretty good deal for you. There are a lot of ways that you can do this, and before it's too late, because I think eventually it will be, folks need to do everything you can to get yourselves prepared. All right, folks, thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.